So what I'm going to focus on is three part. First, I want to talk about what is the business use case and value for these integrations. I think and Yomar and Eric has almost done this job for me by talking through the value of integration, how we position the integration together. But I'll spend a little bit time on this, not a whole lot. I'll spend about 15-20 minutes on a demo, which will be a business demo led from Axon point of view, but we'll talk about how Axon integrate with DPM in that demo as well. Then I will go into some of the integration points and setup. So first we'll look at from the business side how the integration helps customers. We'll see that in action for one of the customer, and then we will see the actual backend integration setup and integration point between the product. Okay, good. So this is more for a customer who already have both EDC and Axon but doesn't have DPM, and we have several of them. We have 700 EDC customers, about 400 Axon customer, but only 100 DPM customers. So there are so many more customers where we can upsell DPM, and there are a lot more opportunities in the pipe for Axon and EDC where DPM can be a part of, right? So if you look at that, the data privacy is basically a journey, and the governance and privacy journey might start with Axon, where you are aligning the people, process, system together, and then defining policies and workflow so that you can get the collaboration going. You can capture what is the tacit knowledge which is in people's mind. But you don't stop there. You want to automate all that and have an enterprise-wide discovery of not only sensitive data, but all the data, catalog that and organize that so that you can match the business view of the enterprise with the physical view of the enterprise, right? And a lot of customers are in this journey. Some people have started with EDC, some people have started with Axon. But what we want customers to do is we want them to look at the next piece of the journey, that is automating the complete privacy by tracking the proliferation, access, being able to report on DSR. We have spent enough time on why DSR reporting is important, why it is part of regulations, helps us, and how it can be done easily and effectively using DPM. Otherwise, it takes customers about $1,400 to do a DSR report as per Gartner. And then how we can orchestrate by analyzing and prioritizing the risk so that we can focus on those 20% of the data stores which have 80% of the risk and ultimately protect those data stores, right? So this is the complete story, and it's a journey for customers. Customer may start at one place and go at other places. But as Yomar mentioned in her last presentation, if we are not talking about the complete journey, our competitor will. Our competitors know that they can win better if they talk about the complete journey. Companies increasingly are looking to avoid custom integrations, looking to avoid dealing with multiple vendors and take that risk of integrations, right? So it is going to reduce that risk for customers. Now, this slide is a build, but we all talked about what each product does, right? Just for everybody's benefit, Axon is just capturing the tacit knowledge which is there in the enterprise by looking at what is there in those Excel file, looking at what is there in those wikis, the conference pages, or the data model which were created somewhere in a PowerPoint or in Erwin, right? The people were managing this information about what is what information, who knows about what policies are there manually. Axon kind of puts that in a way that it is more manageable, it is understood, it is connected, so it is providing that context to you. Enterprise data catalog, on the other hand, is going to discover and classify the information for you, give you the lineage view, tell you what kind of transformation are there, and data quality is going to help us once you have discovered the physical field to know what is the quality of the data and manage the quality. And privacy on the top will basically help you find the sensitive data, monitor the proliferation, protection status, and also do the DSAR reporting or data subject reporting and breach analysis. Few more of this type of information. Again, you can choose to present in the way you like, as Eric was talking about. As you can see, I'm going to a little bit more detail on privacy here and security products as well. So here we are breaking on the top 3 specific areas. First, you want to understand and analyze the risk, right? That you can do that using EDC and Axon and some bit of data privacy management. So there you are discovering and classifying personal data and prioritizing risk using EDC and DPM. And then you are defining and managing the policy using Axon, right? After that, you want to be able to respond to various subject requests, map actual identity of people and report on them. And then that's where DPM is must for that, right? But some of the regulations also ask you to have a full-fledged consent management system where you're capturing all the consent and managing that for this test, our customer 360 product. For protection or data minimization, we have our data masking solutions, which are dynamic data masking, which basically protects the data without changing any data, but just the query which are going to the data. This is used for production system, and data masking, which could be used for non-production system, which is basically going to mask the data in test and dev environment. So persistent data masking and dynamic data masking comes handy in protecting the data in non-production and production systems respectively. And the data archive solutions could be used effectively. Again, a part of the GDPR regulations or CCPA regulations ask you to do data minimization. So you can archive the old data or sunset the systems which are not in use. Okay, so that is the complete solution here. I'm going to present one more slide about all the product and to give you a different view of cross product solutions here. Now here we are talking about a little bit about linkage here, right? So we talked about that we are defining the business term and policies in Axon, the critical data element in Axon, but you need to get the physical aspect of the data. The business and technical metadata linkage is happening between Axon and EDC. So the cataloging of metadata, the lineage and change impact can be overlaid if you have Axon and EDC together, right? Now, the data quality comes into picture and helps you find the data quality for specific business term, because now that you have understood what is the physical field associated with that term, you can go and run the data quality on the physical field, the specific database, schema, and table, right? But the power of our integrations with the data quality, Axon and EDC together is you define a business term, say customer data in Axon. EDC will tell you that customer data is these 3 fields, and these are there in these 4 systems or these 4 resources. Now you will go to Axon and tell that we will use validity, we will use completeness for measure for this field or this glossary term, right? You will create just a standard rule, but the integration, the power is the local rule on DQ will be created by DQ, and the results are shown back in Axon in a summarized way very nicely. So that integration is what Yuma talked about, works very well because a lot of customers already have DQ in place. So that is the integration with DQ, where you are linking the data quality rule and linking the profile scorecard from DQ back to Axon. Now the data privacy is required beyond data catalog because you're caring about sensitive data, not just any discovery of data or domain. So while EDC can do discovery of specific domain, DPM relies on that information and helps you find sensitive data. Now you might say that I can also find credit card number in EDC. How is it different in DPM? There are like, we can get into the technical differences later, but I will talk about one key difference is we have the concept of classification policy in DPM, which is a set of rules and or combinations for finding specific category of data. For example, if you take GDPR, it says any of the 27 national identifier along with specific combinations which can identify a person uniquely. Now that combination could be like a long rule which you have to put together, and we give you out of the box GDPR uh, classification policy, which helps you find not only like first name or a national identifier of student, but if it is together, uh, and how does that risk increase for you, we find that out. We also kind of measure risk by using nine different measures and combining them and coming up with a risk criteria, right? Risk score. What risk score does is it's like a commonly used term in privacy and risk business, that because you cannot protect everything equally, you want to protect wherever the maximum risk is the highest way, right? You want to have your Z level security to VVVIP data, right? So how do you find out which data is gold and which data is bronze? So secure at source is going to give you that score not only based on just sensitivity, but amount of data, who has access to it, how much they are accessing this data, is it protected or moving, is it static or is it moving to different places, uh, and you can also define your custom factors. So based on that, it is going to give you a risk score, and it is also going to prioritize within departments which are the highest risk score and all, right? The other big advantage of data privacy management is DSAR. We talked about that. It is going after and creating an index of various type of subject. It could be customer, employees, or partners. And when they ask what information you have about me, uh, it is going to support that use case, and is also going to orchestrate other use cases around subject rights like right to be forgotten, right to be portability, and you can also orchestrate various remediations like dynamic data masking, persistent data masking, which is our own, but it doesn't stop there. It goes into Ranger and Sentry, which are big data ecosystems protection mechanism and also custom protection mechanism. We also have ServiceNow integrations to remediate uh, various change control mechanism. I see a few questions coming in chat. Okay.
Go ahead. I have been answering those questions.
Okay, cool. So this is the cross product view on how this product kind of work together. I am now going to go into demo, but as I'm switching here, you can ask any questions which you are holding on to. I'm going to start the demo. Give me a minute. So how I'm going to demo this is I'm going to talk through three specific example. This is, as I talked about, is Axon led demo. I'm going to see how the definition in Axon looks like for a privacy officer. So I'm going to jump into Axon environment here. Give me a minute. So I'm logged in as Richard Moon here, who is a data privacy officer, and she's working in retail. So this demo environment is just getting created by Kate Emery, and it is going to be available for all of presales with a nice data script. This is going to be available for other industries as well. This one is for retail. So as you log in, retail means Richard here. So Richard Moon is a retail DPM, data privacy officer. He can go and see his data privacy dashboard and see what's going on, like what are various policies view, what are various articles in place, and what is a maturity of various policy. But I'm going to drive this demo from this uh, personal dashboard of Richard Moon. So what you see here is Richard Moon is tracking few policies and which he cares about. And then there are 5 policies which are in draft state. I'm going to click on this 5 policy, and because I want to understand why they are in draft state, what's going on there. So I'm going to click on this draft 5 policy, and it should take me to the page where the draft policies are there. So you can see that 5 out of 85 policies are in draft state. The environment is a bit slow for me. It's taking some time to load.
You need to click on the policy facet, on the data sets.
Yeah, so we have 5 policies here, and I can see that these are in draft state. This would be in force because the GDPR is there for quite some time. So as a Richard, I want to see what's going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of these policies and understand what's going on here. I see that these are all associated to the rights of the user, but I want to really understand what's going on here. So I'm going to click on one of these policy. I can see that there is some detail associated with this policy, kind of detail here, but I'm going to go over and look at some of the components, which is basically going to show me that this policy is part of data subject rights, along with others like access to be notified, and it is originally coming from privacy for personal data protection. Okay, and then there are lawful processing and lawful processing of sensitive data, right? So this is okay. I understood about the policy, but I still don't know what's going on here, why this is in draft. So I can go to impact and see that this policy is actually used for both GDPR and CCPA. While GDPR is a regulation which is already enforced, CCPA is something which we are working with. Maybe there is a change also associated with it. I want to look at that and understand what is going on here, right? So I can see that it says that this is focused too much on GDPR, but we also need to take into account CCPA. That is what it is talking about here. So we need to make it coherent. That's why this is in draft state. I understand this. I'm not going to make any change here. So I'm just going to follow this for my notification purpose. So if anything changes, I'll come to know. So as Richard, I will again go back to my dashboard and see what are the other tasks which I have. So I can see that there are a few pending tasks, and then this is my entry point into which task I want to do here. So I'm going to look at one of these tasks which is overdue, where it is asking me to put a privacy impact assessment for process which are not compliant. So I'm going to look into this and see what I have to do here. I'm going to click on this workflow, and it is telling me that there has to be appropriate safeguards should be in place for privacy impact assessment for the order management process. I can go and see a little bit more detail here. I can see that this is used in ROPA template. I can see that this is a workflow here, which is for this policy. I can also see that there is somebody who has add some discussion around it. So if the data is transferred out of the region, we want to confirm that there should be safeguard in place, right? So what I want to do next is I want to go and understand a little bit about what's going on here. So I'm going to click on this order management process and understand a little bit more on what's going on, why this is not compliant. So I clicked on the order management process. I want to understand what is the order management process exactly. So it is going to give me a process map. And as you can see, this is basically a retail order process. When customer places an order, we can see based on the order type, we make a decision. If it's an internal order, they receive the product directly from the warehouse and order is shipped. But if it's an external order, the order is placed with the manufacturer and manufacturer validate the purchase and the order, right? So I can do a few more things here. I'm just going to overlay what are the specific glossary terms which are getting used here and understand what is getting moved here as I am looking at. So I can see that the customer retail name is there in all the places, and it is while it is not going to the third party, but there is a lot of other information which is going to the external party here. I want to understand a little bit more, and I want to apply an overlay of legal entity just to understand which are the entities which are involved here. So I can see that there is a UK entity. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. So there is a UK entity, which is the controller, but there is a US entity, which is a processor here for the data when the data is getting pushed for external party. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at a little bit more and understand various policies which are involved for this data to move. So I can see that as the data is moving, there has to be processing based on contract, and there has to be transfer basis for appropriate processing. So I'm going to go into this object and look at detail of this particular policy and understand what's going on there. So I can see that this policy is basically talking about transfer basis with appropriate safeguard need to be placed for lawful processing of data. So I'm going to come back and look at what are the actual systems which are there in this proliferation or in this process map here. And I can see that it is going from a CRM system to Oracle retail warehouse system, but I want to see a detailed view of actual system proliferation. So I'm going to click on the data tab and look at the map here, which is going to give me the detail of how the proliferation is, not just the process, how the data is lineages. And here I can again look at attributes, what actual attributes are moving between the systems. And I can also add the physical field next to the attribute and see what is actually moving. And as I can see that some of the details like customer name, email address are also going to the third party system, right? I'm going to now look at the data privacy overlay and see how the data is protected or not protected. As I can see here, the data in the beginning is kind of protected. There is some protection status here, but when the data is going to this Oracle retail warehouse, it is completely not protected. The protection status is 100% not protected, is all red. So what I want to do is I want to go and understand this particular system in detail. So I'm going to go to this object. So this particular information, if you see, is actually coming from data privacy management and the integration between Axon and data privacy management. So I'm going to go to this system and see a little bit more detail about this system. I clicked on that system. So as the system might have been linked to a data privacy data store behind the scene, you will see a complete picture of the system. You can see that this data store is 100% not protected, and there are 4 sensitive fields here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into DPM via link and log in as Richard Moon here into the DPM system. Yeah, and after logging into DPM, I'm going to look at the top data store here and apply a filter on my retail system. So we can see that there is a retail data warehouse listed, and you can see little bit more detailed proliferation of it. We can see that the data is in fact protected earlier in red, in green, and then it is becoming red here. We can also see what actual fields are getting proliferated between these two systems. And we can also see the actual field within this data store. I'm going to go and look at the specific field. So as part of my role here, I want to ensure that these fields are protected because it is going to a third party. So I have done some protection analysis already for this system, and I can see that if I protect it by encrypting and decrypting, I will basically protect 100% of the data store, and my risk cost will become 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check all these fields and uh, initiate a protection here. Because encryption is not fully integrated here, I'm going to just take action and send an email. So here the email is a completely templatized, and we can use that to create a task for somebody downstream, which will basically protect this system. So I will mask or encrypt and give all the detail here required. And as the systems are getting protected, I will be informed via the task here. So I can go ahead and create this task. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to not going to really go and do the protection. So assume that somebody has done the protection in the interest of time for the demo. I'm going to go and look at, assuming that the protection is done, I'm going to click on this order management again and go back to my system here, the process which I started with, and go to change control. And I'm still not going to mark this as like complete, but I can just go ahead and say that a process is started to protect. And once that is complete, we can mark this task, the change control, as complete. So this is kind of an end-to-end flow for a data privacy officer who is using Axon as a key driving, right, for showing the demo. We saw how the privacy overlay is there in the maps. We saw how the privacy could be there for the privacy facts could be bring in for the system. And similarly, those can be we can bring them for the policies as well. We'll talk about the detailed technical side of the integration in a bit, but this is showing you how a business user in Axon will use to inform and take decisions, because he has now additional information coming from privacy, and then he can take remedial action by going into DPM, or it might be a different user in some cases. In this demo, we assume that it is the same person, but in some cases it might be a different person who is going to take that action in DPM and then just inform Richard Moon here. So any questions before I go to the next section of the demo here?
There are a couple of questions in the chat that I could not answer. One was from Srinivasa, which said, you were showing a process, right? So his question is this process applicable for CCP as well? I mean, the order management process that you are demoing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is that?
So basically,
Sorry, go ahead.
And say, yeah, so CCPA will not say that this process is applicable for CA, right? If I, as a California resident, if you have my data and my data is used in any of the processes, that process has to be CCPA compliant, right? And you might need to have like a data controller for that process based on the size of the process. In Axon, the processes are very hierarchical, so it's an order management process. So any customer will go through the order management process, and it will be definitely be part of CCPA if this organization is dealing with California subjects. It will become a part of GDPR if this organization is dealing with European subject. Is there any other question, Ramesh?
This other one which I answered, instead of desk ticket for protection, can there be native protection using default extension with PDM? That's
Yes.
a yes. And
Yeah.
then there is a question from Kingsley if this demo content is available on the AMI that we have shared for the labs.
Yes,
I
it is
don't think so.
not there
This is a different
exactly. This demo is still under progress, which we have not added to this current AMI, but we can give you the script for this demo. Okay.
The data too?
Yes, the data too.
Who should people contact? Jagdeep?
I will send you a link where you can download all this content. We'll actually put this in the SharePoint folder before the end of the training.
Yes, let's put it in the SharePoint. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, as I was telling you, this demo is built by Kate as part of several industries demo which is building. So there is, this one is for like R is for retail. There is F for financial services and banking. There is one for healthcare as well. So there are different personas which you need to use, and the flow remains the same. The data changes based on the industry. So you will have various industry demo available, which will span across products. Now these are under progress, but there are a few which are already there. Okay, so I want to talk through a couple of more use cases. One use case is like we saw how Axon is integrated with DPM from a business point of view. Other use case which you will always hear from a EDC customer that I have already invested so much money in scanning my resources and systems in EDC. Do I need to do that again in DPM when I install DPM? You definitely can leverage all the discovery which you have done in EDC into DPM. Behind the scene, the discovery engines are same. The metadata repositories are same. While I'm saying that it will change a little bit as we go into unstructured tomorrow, I will leave that discussion aside. But whatever the 95 data stores you are seeing in DPM, this environment, behind the scene, the EDC instance, which is the catalog services which are running along with DPM services, will also have at least this 95 data stores created there. As we create any data store in DPM, behind the scene catalog also have that information. The data store is created. When we scan data or metadata, that information is also stored in DPM and EDC together. When we edit a data domain, there is only one source of truth. The information is also stored in EDC and DPM. Now, while I said this, the reverse is not true. If you add a data store, if you add a resource in EDC, it will not by default show up in DPM. So what you need to do is, if I am an EDC customer and I install DPM, imagine there are 0 data store here. I will just go, if they're on the same catalog service, I will just go here and say import catalog resources. If I say import catalog resources, it is going to show me all the resources which are there in EDC but not there in DPM. In this case, there are 39 resources which are there in EDC but not there in DPM. I can choose specific policies because this is a new information which is required for DPM. or this is the first information which is required for DPM to understand and prioritize the data store. So I can choose like CCPA and GDPR here. I can choose to include row count or not choose to include row count, and what happens after every incremental scan. And then I can say that I want to get these two Oracle system and maybe one more Oracle from here. So I can choose few systems and I can see what I've chosen and then go ahead and import this data store. I'm not going to run import data store here, but I'm going to talk through after you do the import. Actually, Erwin showed this yesterday by going over the job as well. So it will basically go ahead and create this data store in DPM and also calculate additional calculations which are required for DPM, like risk calculation, the protection calculation, the risk score calculation, and prioritization of risk. It is going to do all that. Now, one more thing which I want to show you quickly is if you have chosen not to do that auto sync, what will happen is I'm going to just say cancel here. If you see next to some data store, you will see like a triangle here. So if you see here, uh, it says catalog scan did not include 16 domain. To scan this domain, open the data store detail and click an action and scan missing domain. So in this case, when catalog subsequent scan run, it was not run for few data domain. So you can only do this incremental scan by going here and say scan for missing data domain only. So you are going to leverage all the work which is done in EDC, and if it is already complete, you can just import as is. While importing, it will automatically do additional scans for data domains which is required, and subsequently if there is additional things which are missing, not coming from EDC, you can run them only incrementally. So this is a big time saving, cost saving for customers when they have EDC and just they want to add DPM. And we are seeing customers already doing that with the popularity of data subject registry. There is a really compelling reason for customer to go here. Okay, I want to go back to presentation and talk through few more concepts and then come back and show you some of the configuration steps just for a technical configuration side. So in the demo, we looked at the aligning of people, process, and systems in Axon, the policy and the workflow, and how the overlay works. So this could be like the facets in Axons which are used in the demo, and then you can have a relationship with those facets. And as you define one relationship, other relationships kind of get built very easily. There are some cross relationship you will see because sometimes there is one org unit is part of other org unit and a regulation is part of other regulation. And then we saw how automated discovery could be used, the orchestration we saw, but how this works in a flow for various persona. We just kind of used one person, but you will see like in customer situation, customer bulk upload facets, organizations, regulations, whatever they have, right? Whatever you can curate and assign stakeholder, and then they will upload relationship or create quickly relationship. After they do that, and if they have Axon, they will just scan those resources, monitor the validations, discover the data, and curate. And we can use EDC scan in DPM. We can review and risk finding, and then we can basically show the risk dashboard in DPM, and that fixes will be shown back into Axon. Right? This is the contributor flow. I'm going to these are you get a request from you want to validate that may not validate happen outside our product, and then you are searching for the subject in DPM. You're finding the relevant subject. but you want to get maybe category, the legal purpose, some of the third party information from Axon. Sometimes you can enrich that into DPM, and then you might have API, which I think last time we saw from Eric creating those API for various data integration tasks. Could be portability, could be right to eraser, could be masking, right? And then you want to have audit and certification, and then you are responding to customer. So there are various of our product and then customer own technology. Sometimes this technology which you are seeing in the green below could be TrustArc, which is the partner in our space, could be OneTrust, which we compete directly now. Okay, then the DSAR request itself could again go through. We want to validate, we want to update the DB for request because we want to track how many requests has come from somebody. Triggering the process for retrieving the data, APIs to get all that information, and then we can get both the information from Axon and DPM, and then respond it back to subject auditor. So instead of talking through the slide, I'm going to show this. So I'm going to go over this. Basically, what happens is the policies in Axon could be linked to either security policy or classification policy in DPM, right? And the system in Axon could be linked to the data store in DPM or resources in EDC. Both are behind the scene, the same object. So those are the two integrations which you are doing, and other information gets built up, right? So basically you will get the risk score popping up from EDC, from secured source back into Axon system. What may happen is multiple systems could be, one system could be mapped to actually multiple data stores in DPM, and then we summarize that information back in Axon. So I'm going to show this configuration directly in the product. That will be much easier. So few high level configuration which you have to do is, first in the setting page in DPM, you have to specify what is the name of the Axon resource which is scanned by EDC. So this is the resource which Axon is scanning, which EDC is scanning for getting all the metadata from Axon into the catalog. So you are just specifying that resource name here. The next piece is in the Axon side. So Jagdeep is going to admin panel here, and we will look at the configuration which is required for, if you go to customize and configure, click on system settings. There is a system setting group called, still called secure at source. Need to change to data privacy management. So here you will specify various secure at source settings like host, port, login, and namespace. And this is the configuration, and rest is only integrations. We can just show the policy integration meanwhile. Yeah, so this GDPR policy here could be linked to a security or privacy, security or classification policy. As you can see, this is already linked to a policy, and when you click on edit, it will show you both security policies and classification policy from the linked DPM system, and then you can link to any policy within Axon. And Jagdeep, if you can go to the dashboard for this GDPR policy.
Yeah.
So once the policy is linked, if you can see the data privacy dashboard for the policy. What it is doing, it is going to look at all the systems which are part of the policy, look at the corresponding resources and data stores. So there are 57 data stores. 4 of them are high risk, 53 of them are low risk, and it is also telling you what is the cost, what is the total protection, and what is the sensitivity level. You'll see the similar dashboard for the system as well. I think you can click on one more system, the next one, FXM, and that might already be associated with a. So this FXM system we are looking at, and here you can see that this FXM system is actually behind the scene connected to 3 data stores. You get the risk for the data store from DPM, and also get the risk cost and protected or non-protected. Other thing which I showed you as part of the demo was the overlay in the maps. So yeah, we are looking at the interfaces for this system, and we are looking at the dataset lineage here, showing the lineage. Yeah, and then we can look at in the system lineage, we can again overlay the privacy overlay, like data quality overlay, and we can see the risk score and protection status as well as severity level for each of the system. And we can like hide or show more field or less field as required. Okay, so this is the end-to-end configuration of the integration between Axon and DPM. And also we looked at how do we get the data from EDC into DPM. So basically this is very powerful integration.